Hi, I'm Tony, and today I'm going to give you my top 6 tips and tricks to sew faster because I am one of the fastest sewers in the world. Yeah, which is why I'm wearing my race suit. Right now, I hold the record for fastest sewer on a domestic machine at 37 minutes completing a strip set top. So yeah, I run lots of races online, in person, all the things. You may be able to see me coming to a store near you to do some really cool things. And yeah, let's get into it with my top 6 tips and tricks so that you can sew faster. Tip and trick number 1 is your machine. For so many years, I didn't understand that I was limited by how fast my machine could go. If you truly want to go fast and you want to do it on a domestic machine and not an industrial machine, the B08 is 1600 stitches a minute and is the fastest domestic machine on the market as of today, which is November of 2024. Now, there may be faster machines in the future, but this is the fastest machine right now. If you want more information about it, I've got a link down below about it. But yeah, it's totally the machine. So make sure that your machine can go fast. And of course, we're also limited by our cost. This machine has a manufacturer suggested retail price of $2,400, which is super expensive if you want a much less cost machine. But of course, the other tips and tricks are for every single machine I'm going to show you. But it's just keep in mind that your machine could be limiting you. Number 2 is to pre-wind your bobbins. If you just sit and have some time watching TV or something, just pre-wind a bunch of bobbins because it's the worst thing when you're trying to go fast and you need a new bobbin and you don't have any pre-wound. No matter the size of your bobbins, if you pre-wind your bobbins ahead of time, it's going to make the sewing so much quicker. Number 3 is marking the seam allowance. So what that means is getting a cool gadget or tape or thing in there that basically helps you with your seam allowance. I'm a quilter and I do strip sets, so I need a 1/4 inch. So this is my 1/4 inch foot that I can get for my B08. You can also get a 1/4 inch foot for a low shank machine, or there's all sorts of other ways to mark so that you can sew a straight line. I've linked my video down below on how to sew a straight line, which basically goes through a couple of those different options. But make sure you're utilizing one of those things so that you don't have to worry about are your seams straight? You can just worry about going fast. Number 4 is how you're putting your seams together. So if you're just making a regular quilt, well then your seams go together like they do. If you're doing a race with a strip set, what the normal strip set does is they normally do the angles, right? So they normally put them together at angles. And what the angles do is it makes your seams stronger, which you really need for binding. However, if you're just putting a quilt together for a race, unless the rules state that you have to do it at an angle, don't do that. Do it straight on, because it's like it's a regular seam. You also do not need to cut off your selvage. You could just go. So in the case of this one, I am just going to start sewing. Let's see, let's put that in there. All the way down. And then I'm going to grab this top one here, bring it over just like this. And then I will grab my next one and put it on top. Just like that, and then sew straight down. And then when you're done sewing through, you just separate it, and then you trim off the selvage, about a 1/4 inch. I've been sewing enough to where I can tell that's a 1/4 inch, but you can of course gauge it yourself. If you want to use your 1/4 inch foot, you notice how I've lined the edge of my 1/4 inch foot with the edge of my selvage right there. So all I have to do is trim right along that selvage and I've got a perfect 1/4 inch. So by doing it this way, it makes it a little bit, easier and faster. And that's just like if you were doing regular seams in a quilt. sewing strips together can go even faster. So in this case, these are the 3 pieces that you saw me previously just sew together. So I'm going to put them in my machine up against that 1/4 inch so I can go fast and I don't have to worry about my seam allowance. And as you're sewing, let me actually get started sewing. There you go. As you're sewing, it's a lot faster if you take your finger, put it between your 2 pieces of fabric, put your thumb on top, and the rest of your fingers are down below. And what that does is as you sew, you're basically feeding it in. Let me show you a better angle. So you see I'm holding this fabric with my left hand. My right hand, now I am right-handed, switch them if you're left-handed. So it's your dominant hand that's inside. So my finger's here, my other fingers are there, my thumb is on top. And then as I'm sewing, I grip this fabric here like this, and I'm just taking my thumb and I'm moving it left and right, just like that. So you see how that's going in nicely. So we're just going all the way down and then resetting when I need to. And you see how I can feed that in. Now, when I get to this part, oops, look, I forgot to trim my selvage off. Let's do that now. Now, whenever you get to seams, you notice how the seams are coming up. I haven't ironed these, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna iron them in fact, because that's just gonna slow me down. I'm gonna trap these seams, so I'm pulling this tight to make sure those seams are opened up, and I'm going to trap it with the bottom down and the top up, just like this. So let me show you. You see how that bottom automatically wants to feed down because it's going into the machine? And I am pulling on this to make sure that those seams are nice and open. And then I'm just folding this down, see, just like that. You see how the seam went into the machine? And it's perfectly fine. So any seam on top, fold towards the machine. Any seam on bottom, go away. And that's only for the first one. So let me show you whenever we come up on these seams for the next pass as I'm sewing it together. When you reach the end, you see how I've got this big old bunch right there? I didn't pay attention to folding it over, making it nice and neat. I just folded it one to the other. Well, that's fine, because it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm putting my scissors in here, and I'm pulling, and I'm cutting. And then, whenever I bring it to the end, I can just sew it all the way through. Just like that. Now you notice my seam is not ironed. Remember what I just said? I'm not going to iron these seams as I'm going. Wait until you iron your seams until the very, very end. And I know it goes against everything you believe in your heart and soul, but this is the best way to go the fastest possible. And I will show you a quilt. I will show you this whenever I'm all finished with it, and I'll show you at the end what it looks like with no iron seams. So if you're doing a race, at this point, you're just going end to end. So here's our sloppy end for the brown. I am just going to attach that on right there, and we're gonna keep going. So we've reached the seam. You see what's happened here, where this seam is going up and this seam is going down? Well, we're not going to force this top just like this, because this seam has already been determined. We're just going to keep on keeping on. So keep it down. And then the seam is nice and happy and straight. And you notice whenever you fold it just like that, at the very end, it's much easier to trim and then fold it over again. And those are my 6 tips and tricks. So I told you I would show you the back of this. So you see how the seams are just sitting just like that for all of them? None of them have been trapped together. So if you've got a quilt that you've got tons of seams that are trapping together, you can't do the waiting for ironing until the end. This is only if you're doing a race or if you're doing a strip quilt, just like this. At this point, I would either iron my seams one direction or open, however my heart feels like ironing them. And hopefully these tips and tricks will help you go even faster. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, as well as my Facebook, my Quite Nerdy Quilters Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, or X. Sometimes I do TikToks. I don't really do Pinterest, but I've got one. All the things, and I stream live on Twitch. So if you want to come and hang out with me or ask me questions, my live schedule is posted on Mondays, or if you want to come see me in person at an event at a store. Take a look at my social media. I post all that, and have a great day.